All right, here we go, guys. Here we go. Hey,
Yeah.
everyone. Welcome to Science and Beyond. I hope everyone's having a great morning, great evening. I say morning because I guess it's 3 o'clock in the morning where he's at, and we're going to bring him on in just a second. For the rest of us, it's about 9 o'clock in the evening for me. Della, what's about the same time for you? Michael, it's a little later. He's up there around 10 o'clock,
Yep.
10:30 up there in the eastern part of the country. Of course, Dell's up there in Canada, so we're definitely international again tonight. So it's here we are, Mike and I in America, and Mike might as well be in Canada. He's so far damn north. Our guest is in the UK, and of course, technically, Dell's in the UK. He's just in Canada, part of the UK.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, I don't want to get
Yeah.
in that since somebody starts writing to me. Joe, oh man, shut up.
Yeah.
Royal, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody asked me if we had a Royal on tonight. No, anyway, I'm just gonna let that go altogether, man. I shouldn't even been reading those comments. But no, we have a great guest on tonight. We're gonna bring on him in just a minute, and I've known him for a few years now, and just he's a lot of fun to talk to. But he's really got something new coming out. I'm letting him come out and introduce it properly, so I don't mess it up for him. But and then we'll come back and do a proper introduction for him. But ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot been going on lately in the UFO and paranormal world, and especially in the UFO world. With the Pentagon wanting to release all this information, and everybody wants to come clean, and this, that, and then the other one, and everybody talking about disclosure. It's different for me. I've been around a little while, so I've been hearing disclosure since I'm an old guy now, but anyway, since I was about 18. So it's been a long, long, long time, and I'm always hoping, for the best. I'm always hoping that we will have some really good disclosure, and if you have the right groups out there applying the right amount of pressures, or just being in the right places at the right time, we can make a big difference in all of this. But tonight, our guest is Gary Heseltine. Look, and I still tried to mess it up. Been knowing him for a long time. He's in the UK. I'm going to let him properly introduce himself. But I want him to really just come on and talk a little bit about his organization before we come back and give him a better intro. So, Gary, how you been, man?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for having me on.
Oh man, you're great, and I know a good bit of our listeners are familiar with you because you've been on a few times with us over the years, and I know when I had posted it earlier, we got quite a few comments that came in about Gary. What's Gary up to, and what are y'all going to be talking about tonight, and what kind of alien stuff is going on, and I know you and I have talked about Rendlesham quite a lot over the years. I mean, quite a
Yep.
lot over the years, and we've gotten into pretty in-depth conversations, and there's a lot been going on that, and I know you do. You do a lot of hardcore research. You really get into what you're looking at. You pay attention to what you're being told, and you do try to check and follow along to make sure the witnesses are. How can I say this politely? Legit. So, tell me a little bit about what you've got yourself into now. I know. Last time we talked, you were finishing wrapping up on another project, and now here you are getting ready. Well, basically already launching a new project. So tell me about it. I'm really interested. After I've read the info on it, I've been really waiting to talk to you about it. Sorry.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. This is the first time I've been able to speak on a radio show since we launched on Tuesday, the 25th of May. I am the vice president of a new international organization called the International Coalition for Extraterrestrial Research, and that shortens to ICER, which is the easy way to remember it. And basically, what we've done is over the course of the last almost 12 months, put together 27 countries on 5 continents with the view to saying that after we've looked at the evidence that's been accumulated in research over the last 70 years, that we acknowledge that the phenomena is real and that it acts with intelligence and that it's likely to be extraterrestrial or non-human in origin. We are a group of scientists, academics, and leading UFO, UAP researchers from around the world. So on this kind of scale internationally, it's never really been done. And our focus is to, I do think something is happening in the disclosure world. There's too much coming out too quick, almost every day, almost every week, or every week and almost every day at the moment. How do you put that, those revelations back into the box, as it were? And I don't think you can. So I do think something is happening. Whether it's going to be the big breakthrough that we think about, who knows? But I do sense that we're much closer to the end of the process, and something is happening. So in light of that, we at ICER wanted to in a sense, launch prior to the US Navy Task Force report. And let's just go into a world of say, well, what is the US Navy Task Force going to give us? We think it's not going to be the big singing and dancing disclosure that we all want, but we do think it will be an interim report saying we need to do a lot more study on this and give you a more detailed report. So we'll do an interim report, but we still think that there'll be a lot coming in that unclassified interim report, even if it's no more videos or anything like that. All they have to do is reiterate and confirm, which we already know they already have in recent days with the Corbell videos, etc., that these things are real, they're tangible, they're caught on FLIR video cameras, forward-looking infrared radar, and the ship cameras, the infrared cameras are picking them up often. If you've seen the latest Corbell radar footage with 9 objects surrounding one of the ships in 2019, we're kind of at a stage that's gone way beyond lights in the sky, swamp gas, and all the usual excuses that we'll put out. We're into a reality world that is one stop short of big disclosure. It's one stop short. So we think that this this interim report will still be very significant. I think it will be probably on the equivalent of the Pentagon admissions, the New York Times article in 2017, which kicked off this journey, because everything has changed. If you go to the mainstream media now, they're not laughing. Certainly not in America when they're on news programs all the time now. Very quickly, within 2-3 weeks of this really starting to come to the fore, the last 2 or 3 weeks, you're getting news interview after news interview. There's no giggling, and they're saying, no, these things are real, and they're kind of accepting it. We've never had that. And Joe, in your opening remarks, you said you've been around a long time. Well, so have I. I'm 61 years of age now, and I had a sighting when I was 16 that created my interest. And in my opinion, what we've got now is the closest unprecedented time to something that I have ever seen. And obviously, as an active researcher in the public for the last 19 years, what's happening in the last 6 months on the scale of the people like John Ratcliffe, John Brennan, James Clapper, Woolsey, etc., Admiral Woolsey, this is unprecedented. And then Obama chipping in. Now, Obama has must have been interviewed 100 times on chat shows, and it's always been giggle, giggle, giggle when the UFO subject came up. But he then actually went serious and did something that he's never, ever, ever done before. He was specific. We have video films of objects that we can't explain, we don't know what they are, and we can't explain how they move. Now that's pretty damning, but he'd never ever said that before. So my natural curiosity as a former police detective is why now? And
Yeah, why not?
And I can only think that because President Biden was his vice president, maybe he was saying, "Go for it."
Well, actually, you know what's coming out right now? It has nothing to do with Biden or Trump. I mean, yeah. Biden or Obama. This was all Trump. Trump snuck this into that last package.
Oh, he did. I mean, it's crucial.
He stuck it in there and said, "Look, y'all going to disclose this no matter what." He wasn't going to sign anything if it wasn't in there. I don't know what he had a weird interest in. He kind of reminded me of Clinton in the way he had an interest in UFOs, or maybe even one of the presidents further back. For some reason, somebody tipped this crazy bastard, excuse my language, this crazy man about aliens or UFOs, because he really did have a serious interest in it. He wanted to make sure that at least part of this got disclosed. Now, I know what we're talking about, some of this stuff that's coming out now is going to be directly responsible for him. So we had Clinton. We got to go back to Clinton for a little bit because Reagan was crazy. You know, he let us know there's something going on because, you know, Reagan said, what happens if aliens invade the planet, or what happened? And then he turns right around after he says that and institute Pine Gap, the Hart Facility, and Star Wars. You kind of like, whoa, dude, wait. We're kind of just all of a sudden want to, you know, weaponize space in a big way. I was like, whoa, you need to calm your ass down here. What's going on? And then here you got Clinton coming in. Clinton's talking to everybody and their mama trying to get some kind of information. I mean, he went to the Rockefellers. He was all over.
Absolutely, yeah. The Rockefeller Initiative is crucial, but
and then of course, we had the Bushes, which I don't. I'm sure Daddy Bush knew everything about aliens because of where he was, being ex-CIA and vice president and president. So he probably knew, but he didn't seem to really care if you and I knew. He's like, whatever, you stupid humans don't need to know anything. So he just kind of skipped by, and then you had Obama come in. And Obama was weird because in the beginning he was kind of like, yeah, a little UFO, and then he kind of slid it to the side, and then he kind of snuck a little bit. He did like Trump did, but a little bit quieter. He snuck another little package in there of letting information release. So there has been some presidents that have tried to at least get us to the truth. Now, let me ask you this, and then I'm going to introduce the panel and let them get some questions into you before we go back to what we were talking about. Do you think Biden will pick this up and run with this? I mean, now the Pentagon's got to put it out. It's part of the executive order. Biden can't overturn the order without giving all the money back, so that's not going to happen. So they have to put it out now, at least part of it. So will Biden use it? I mean, he might want to get reelected or something, so maybe he should seize on this opportunity to come out and say, he don't have to come right out and say, like, aliens visiting the planet. He could say, no, we've got information that from time to time, unexplainable, maybe extraterrestrials pop by, visit.
Obviously, you can't speak what a president will do, but it's very interesting. If you just in recent days, there was the press conference question to Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, and if you saw that, what was clear about that is, yes, there was a bit of a giggle at the start, but she anticipated the question, which is unusual. So she anticipated the question and then she read from prepared notes. So this was not off the cuff. She read from prepared notes and she kept glancing down. She was reading off her script of prepared response to that question. Now, I suspect what will happen, and what she said was interesting, because what she said is, that President Biden is well aware of the upcoming report and its implications, blah, blah, blah. She didn't deflect from that, which was interesting. So she confirmed that the president knew about it and that there would obviously have to be some comment. The question is, what's he going to say? Like you say, he could take the bull by the horns and say, look, it's all real. I don't think that's going to happen. But what I do think is that I expect between now and that report coming out, or around the days after it's come out, that he will be asked a pre-allowed question in the White House briefing, and he will give an answer of some description, which will be pretty historic in itself. And you can't put the genie back in the bottle and say these things don't exist, it's all swamp gas, it's all Venus. You can't do that because of the 3 Fleur videos that came out in 2017.
Oh, no, yeah. Plus all the ones that came out of Mexico.
Absolutely. I mean, they all the recent stuff, the triangle, the transmedium, and now the radar footage. The Navy, U.S. Navy, Susan Goff is admitting, confirming within hours of the publication, which was amazing when you think that it took 2 years just to get the original 3 videos authenticated as US Navy. But now it's been done within hours, which is kind of, again, unprecedented confirmation that, yes, they are legitimate US Navy task force, US Navy videos. So we're into a different ball game. And with all the comments by the senior politicians, senior military people, you would kind of think that they're pushing themselves into a corner almost at the point of no return. So it's a question is, does President Biden go with that? Or does he just say, well, we need more time? There is clearly objects being seen in the US airspace. We don't have all the story yet. We don't know what they are. We're going to do further research on it. So this is just an interim report. I think he'll say something like that. But if he says that these things, as a sitting president, are unknown, they're not US, and they move in ways that we don't understand, then that is going to be a massive, massive historical step.
I know, I agree. Let me get sorry about that. People spamming me. So, Tito, man, you awake there? What you doing, Tito? Tito has passed. I can see his head is cocked.
Hello, I am just listening because it's very interesting. I would like to talk about Rudlow Manor, though, because Rudlow Manor has a lot of history, and I think they have a lot of materials. You know what I mean? I think there was a massive spread of materials between friendly nations. What do you think of that?
Okay,
I don't think you can. I don't think you can adequately prove that. We suspect that Rudlow Manor had underground tunnels. I do know of former RAF police, because it was an RAF police kind of main security building, and I was in the Royal Air Force Police myself between 1983 and 1989, guarding nuclear weapons for 3 of my 6 years service. But I knew people who'd been at Rudlow Manor, and they confirmed that there were underground tunnels, but most of that was all locked off to them. So who knows what really went on there? We do know that it was one of the facilities that would look at the UFO subject. But can you prove it? Have you got documents? Have you got real evidence that you can look at? And the answer is no. So it's suspected that it played a bigger role, but I have no knowledge of that. But I mean, when we're talking about the organisation that has just launched, ICER, the point I was going to make to Joe is that let's just say that this is another massive step towards the big disclosure that we kind of all dream about, where it's on every news channel 24/7. We're not there yet, and we're probably a long way from that, but it's coming, because I don't see how you can turn everything back. But what I suspect is that let's just go into a hypothetical world of we're nearly there. Well, what happens if we were there and something came out? And this is ICER's position, is that if a new reality of, yes, they are here, yes, we accept there's an intelligence interacting with planet Earth, then that's a paradigm shift. People use that word, but it really would be probably the greatest step in human evolution, the contact with something, whether it be extraterrestrial, interdimensional, multiverse, whatever you want to call it, but it would be not man-made. That would come as a huge shock, not to your audience, not to my audience, but it'd come as a huge shock, I think, to 95% of the world, who, whilst they might say on a Gallup poll, you know, do you believe that there's aliens out there? Yes, no. That takes 2 seconds to think about it. But when all reality kicks in, the real hard question of the cover-up that's been in existence for over 70 years, 95% of the public are oblivious to this. They don't know any of the real history, the evidential history that goes back to the Second World War, the correlation to nuclear weapons that's been there for decades. Hence why Robert Hastings' documentary UFOs and Nukes is so powerful, because he very does it through special effects and getting the real people who are in those missile silos going on camera, often for the first time. So the reason why ICER has been created in many ways is to try to draw attention to this and say, well, what if? And we do believe that we're getting close to that what if. Now, if it just comes out and suddenly they say tomorrow or in a week's time, yeah, it's real, we're dealing with an extraterrestrial stroke, non-human intelligence, we're not quite sure, but it's real, then I think a lot of people may be frightened and psychologically would be worried. Are we going to be invaded or whatever? Now, at ICER, we don't think that at all, because we know the history of the subject. Between us, we've got 300 or 400 years of collective investigative experience. So we know the real history going back to the Second World War. So I think what we'd be saying is, yes, I can see from a military standpoint, US Air Force, US airspace standpoint, yes, technically, if these things can travel around with impunity, then technically America is vulnerable. Of course it is. However, what we will be saying as ICER, now we've launched, if we were to get that platform at a higher level, is, well, actually, there's no real evidence to say that these are aggressive. That's not to say that there's no incidents of aggression, but largely speaking, it doesn't appear that way over the last 70 years. So that's what our message would be. And ICER wants to create awareness programs. basically,
Okay, I'm gonna just stop right there for a minute because I'm gonna sneak Dell in here,
Yeah.
because I want to get him so we're rotating through. But Dell, you hot? And Dell's up there in Canada, man, freezing. I don't why anybody lives in Canada is beyond me, but it's cold. Yeah, man, I live in the South. I like it's warm down here and snuggly. I mean, we might even get to 90 tomorrow. I mean, Lord. And but anyway, Dell, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going? Hey, just looking there. It says your organization launched on May 25th, my birthday.
Happy birthday, belated.
Yeah. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. A question that I do have, or how, or what you might think about this is that the way I look at this with the UFO phenomenon is that we're mostly a lot of the channels and shows that always talk about what it's doing to the USA. I know up here we had Paul Hellyer. He was a Minister of Defense here in Canada. He released years back about there was alien races that were around, and I think he mentioned something like about 11 different alien races, and whatever type of arrangements were being made between these races and the people of Earth, or I guess governments, or would you say black ops governments and military. And then I think it was the president of Saudi Arabia had released the information that there was alien presence and that isn't from Earth. And I guess out of the whole part, there's you get that about the ships, but I think the part they were being alluding to is that they're worried about this interdimensional stuff. Like the ships is one thing, you can see those and stuff like that, but I guess working with interdimensional, this Stargate project that was going on, and I think that's why the U.S. went into Saddam Hussein there to go recover a Stargate that they'd uncovered when he was digging up Nebuchadnezzar's temple and that. Have you guys looked into any of that stuff?
Well, I would have to say that from my own independent point of view, as a personal researcher, I don't see any actual evidence to back up what you've just said. I see lots of stories, but as a former detective, I don't see any actually evidence that proves that. I'm not saying it can't be true. I'm just saying that when I look at evidence, I have to see something a bit more than what a news story is. You need to check your sources and you need to get more corroboration. And I don't see anything to back that up. So that's that.
Well, like the Paul Hellyer stuff, that was in a forum that he actually said, no, there are alien races that are interacting with Earth, and it was sort of
all I can do is look at it from my point of view as a former detective, and I look for the best evidential material. And I've met Paul Hellyer, and I'm not saying he's not true, but what I'm saying is I don't see any evidence to start getting into number of races, naming races. And ICER's point of view is done from a very evidential point of view. You remember what I said, and I thought what you were going to say in your lead in was that we tend to look at this as an American thing. Is it a worldwide phenomenon? And the answer to that question, if that's what you were leading up to, is it's a very much an international thing. And again, a lot of Americans, I suspect, tend to think it's just America, and it's not. It's a worldwide phenomenon, every country in the world. And from ICER, the new organization that I'm a part of, from our point of view, we want to, again, if we were given a higher level platform, and to achieve that, we've written to in each of the 27 countries of our national representatives, have all sent huge batches of letters and emails to every sector of society, the Prime Minister, the President, the head of military and head of education, universities, whatever. So that's a campaign that's ongoing, both through email and through snail mail letters, and that's going to take time to come back. But we wanted to make them aware of these, what we think are significant developments that are taking place in the United States. Almost, it's hard to even catch up what's going on. It's almost weekly that some revelation is coming out, and this is why I say that this has never happened before in my lifetime of following this subject and kind of wanting a disclosure. And I know that people have had false dawns before, but I just don't remember the amount of significant events that are occurring now. So going back to why ICER was created is we do think that we are getting close to a time where there will be this new reality, and we think that will be a shock. So we think that you should create awareness programs around the world to try to lessen any panic and help people adjust to that new reality. Now, people are often saying to us straight away, well, we know that they're here, and why aren't we going for consciousness straight away? And why aren't we addressing contact straight away? Because we think that's too big a leap for a general public that are absolutely, totally unprepared. You think about it, most politicians, even at the highest level, don't have a clue. Most heads of university don't have a clue. Most scientists don't have a clue. Most heads of multinational huge corporations don't have a clue because they've been fed a lie for 70 years. Anything from the Robertson panel onwards, 1953, that says we've got to strip the aura, the fascination that the public have for UFOs. How do we do it? We'll get a team of scientists together and we'll figure it out. To over 2 days, yeah, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make that happen by debunking everything on this subject using all forms of media, TV, radio, newspaper, film, which was the only things that were available at the time. But wow, what a successful story they had, because that has lasted 68 years. But it looks like now, because of those 3 FLIR videos that are crucial, that was so crucial for the mainstream media, because for the first time, they had something tangible. They could see the go fast little object go shooting across the surface of the water, and they could go, what is that? Forget about the conversation of what it was or where it was from, but they could see it. They knew there was something tangible there. And that, for the mainstream media, I think was the key to them starting to unlock the door and just realize that actually there might be a story here and we might just have been lied to. And that has continued.
This would go into another part along with this as well, though. Do you know, to any of your knowledge there, that this has been an issue or a topic that the United Nations has actually discussed between when they have their big meetings at all about some sort of otherworldly presence that might be here?
I know that they have a section that is prepared in a sense to deal with the extraterrestrial question. However, nothing official has ever really come out about whether there is any kind of prime minister, presidential level meetings. Yes, lots of things are claimed by certain people within the UFO community, but I don't see any evidence to back that up. However, we do know historically that from 1978, there was the Grenada attempt to get serious discussion. And Sir Eric Gary was the president of Grenada at the time, and he got it. He got J. Allen Hynek involved, Jacques Vallée, various other people, and there was some kind of presentation given. It wasn't in the big forum that you kind of see, the round forum, but there were discussions at the UN level, and there was a debate, for want of a better phrase. However, it's clear from historical records that the Americans didn't really want that. The British, who have always followed the American lead, they didn't want that. And so, in a sense, they gave him a few hours to have a little debate in the UN. And then just a few months later, he was ousted from office in a coup. And let's not go down the political route on that as to what caused the coup. But suffice to say that he didn't stay in office, and it kind of died a death. However, the clause that he, in a sense, was raised on his behalf is still there, and it's kind of laid on file. But to go to the UN, and let me go back to the new organization. We're an international NGO. We're not just a UFO group. We're an international NGO registered in Portugal, where one of our representatives lives. So it's registered in Portugal. We've got 27 countries on 5 continents. We're looking to identify serious researchers in other countries to build on that. But the key thing is that it's a worldwide thing, and the American public in particular are going to be in for a shock. So what have ICER done? ICER have created just a summary 60-case representation document, a PDF, to give to journalists that shows the worldwide phenomenon, or cases from all around the world, although there's a lot American, because there's been some excellent cases in America historically, but it's 60 cases of what could be several thousands really good reports. Many of them are military pilots, commercial pilots, often corroborated on radar, ground and airborne radar. So we wanted to give something evidential if the press really start to pick up on what we're trying to do. And we see that as a very easy, it's not a big, thick document. It's basically 1 page per case with some aspects of intelligence that we think are involved in that particular case, some references, but it's an easy to read document for the media, who are largely oblivious to this kind of truth.
It's still not evidence, and evidence is more your own. I mean, you're still going by what other people say, and there's a lot of people out there that think the UVAs, UFOs people see are actually just black projects. You know what I mean? Like,
and some of them could be. Some of them could be.
But there's also something called the cosmic equation, where people think that
Mike, we lost you.
These aliens just going to be able to communicate with people, and then you have very unlikely that could even happen unless they have some other telepathic thought they could put in your brain. But on top of that, do you think that tomorrow they say, yeah, there's aliens, they're here, they've been looking over us, they've been here for 1 million years, blah, 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 blah. And do you think people would use that as a crutch? Look up to them, because you know how crazy religious people can get, especially if you're going to say, hey, you're wrong about everything, here's this over here. What do you think of that?
I think if there was a disclosure in the sense of what we kind of hope for, what I think Joe and I would hope for is that just some truth coming out of it, that there is a recognition that there's some kind of intelligence from somewhere. I think the world would be very, as it is now, the world is very, very, very unprepared for that acknowledgement.
I agree.
Of course.
And with that comes responsibility. So how do you try to alleviate the panic that could be caused, the confusion, the thought that you're totally vulnerable to these things that can come and go, etc., etc. And in real terms, the only way you can do that is start to prepare from the ground up. And the ground up is just by saying, right, well, here's the real history. And when you talk about evidence, I think I know what evidence is. I was a detective for a long time. Have you been in the court of law and studied legal cases? I have. I gave evidence.
Yeah, actually, I'm a private investigator. You don't know that, but
okay,
but yeah.
I didn't know that. All right, fair dues to you. But you'll know then that
I've got a lot of years as a private investigator in New York City, in New York State. So yeah, court evidence, the whole bit. But evidence is tangible. Hearsay is not tangible.
No,
Hearsay is not tangible.
Hang on a second. That you're going way off base. When we talk about evidence, there is only 3 types of evidence that gets into any police case. It's physical, which is called real evidence; documentary, anything written. Yeah, and you kind of got written evidence and verbal testimony. Now, when you go to court, the way it would work in Britain, I can't really speak for America, but the way it would work in Britain is if you were involved in a robbery or whatever, you were a victim, the police would come and see you and they would end up taking a statement from you. You don't write your statement because you don't know how to write it for the court. It has to be done in a certain way, certain chronological way. So basically, your verbal testimony is then written down, that then becomes documentary evidence because it's written down. Your statement's written down. And that is what is presented at court. You may get asked questions about it, but your testimony, your verbal testimony, usually in a court of law, is written down in a statement form. That's how the case trials are put together. So you have those 3 forms of evidence: verbal, something physical, and anything that's in a document. If you think about a fraud case, somebody does a bank fraud, then you're going to seek out the bank transaction records. That's something that you can hold up in court and say, this is exhibit GH1. It's the statement where this card used the credit card, and this is the time of the transaction. That's the printout. That's evidence, and that applies to every court around the world. There are only 3 types of evidence. So hearsay is a terrible form of evidence because it's not something that's directly involved. It's one step away.
And we're also not going to court. You're trying to make a presentation to people rather than in more. It's not even convincing them because it'll happen on its own in its right time, you know. And I understand your mission and what you're doing, and I like it because anything that brings people closer to knowledge is a good thing, you know.
Absolutely, I think we're all agreed on that.
There's a huge UFO report coming out. I don't expect much from it. More of the same, right? But the fact of the matter is, you know, they have these new Raytheon systems, these radar systems, which is how they found these to begin with, you know. But if you think about, you know, all the pilots, all the astronauts, all these people that said they saw things, and all the UFOs come and go like a freeway, you know, and you know, the space station, they have to keep shutting the camera off. All of that is tangible to me. It's not just hearsay because they're more legitimate sources. It's different than Bubba in East Texas saying, "Hey, the alien came down and took me for a ride." You know what I mean?
So let's just examine what you said, because you're absolutely right. It is more tangible, and this is why the combination now of if you think about Commander David Fravor, who was the first person really to go on camera as a pilot with regards to the Nimitz incident, he's not hearsay because he's saying, I saw it. So that's not hearsay. So one, he's saying it verbally. You could transcribe what he says into a written document whenever he's interviewed. So that's written evidence. And then it's backed up by physical data. Now, we know that these ships' data have not been released until just last night, when the very first clip of the radar data was there. We've seen the transmedium object off next to the ship that then appears to drop into the ocean, but we hadn't up until yesterday seen any kind of evidence to back up the technical data that we know exists, because people have talked that like Kevin Day, who has said, you know, there is loads of telemetry data, objects dropping from 80,000 feet down to 50 feet above the water in 0.8 of a second. Well, I suspect that we've got absolutely mounds and mounds of scientific data now from these new systems, these sensitive systems that we didn't have in years gone by. That this is why, in a sense, the organization I'm with is like saying is made up of scientists, academics, and researchers, because that doesn't usually happen in this subject. And we've got this group that are all on the same page, which doesn't happen in UFO history. It's very, very divisive subject, and my group's better than your group. Well, we're not doing that. We've all signed an oath that basically says just this, that after 70 years of research, everyone has signed it to be a national representative. Everyone who's the national deputy representative have signed the oath that says that basically after 70 years of research, we acknowledge that this phenomenon is real, it acts with intelligence, we think it's likely to be extraterrestrial or non-human in origin. Pretty simple, but not many people nail their colours to the mast. And we're saying, look, it's obvious now. And it's beginning to dawn on people that it's obvious that there's been a cover-up. You're hearing a lot of interviews now, which you would never have had before. No laughing, news interviews, if you went on, Tucker Carlson often has UFO-related interviews on there, and he will openly say, so they've been lying to us for decades. Well, the reality is there has been a cover-up, and most people just thought it was a joke, because they've been led to believe it was a joke. But if it's not a joke, you have to start addressing the real issues that come out of it. And that's why ICER has been created, is to say, look, if there is a new reality on the doorstep, which we do genuinely believe that it's coming, because there is so much weight now. I liken it to a dam. This is what I say. When the Pentagon admissions came out, and those 3 FLIR videos, a few bricks of the dam came out. So you had a bit of extra water pressure in the middle of the dam. And then this interim report is probably going to be another very big step, and a few more bricks are going to come out that central column, and it's going to start putting pressure and pressure. And what I foresee, and I might be totally wrong, but what I foresee is that when you get to a critical mass of pressure, that dam will collapse very quickly, and it'll go down, and we're into big disclosure world.
Well, I'm hoping you're right, because I want to see some disclosure. All this crap all these years. I was on the Nimitz. I actually seen something on the Nimitz. Matter of fact, I was talking with Stephen Bissett about it not too long ago. We had just got released out of our disclosure agreements. Really extremely high security clearance when I was in the Navy.
Tell them that story, man.
Well, we'll save it for another show because I don't want to get into it. It takes too long. But regardless, I did it. Steve and I did a show together, and we talked about it. And I did one with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano on the Outer Realm. So we talked about it. But there was the Nimitz was a regular thing. People don't understand when they talk about the Nimitz being visited and things going on. This was a regular thing. As far as I know, it started sometime in right around the beginning of the 80s. Or maybe the late 70s, but it was something that went on every so often. There was a craft that came by, usually a saucer, that landed on the deck, very large, usually expanded over both sides of the deck. Lots of people have seen it. There were several occasions that people were put under non-disclosure agreements because, actually, that ain't even what they call them. It was actually a little bit harsher than a non-disclosure agreement. You could definitely go to prison if you broke the agreement. But a bunch of us got released, so we've been out talking about it, because there was some weird stuff that went on in a carrier. The Navy's been involved in ET or ET checking them out since they've been floating in the sea. They have a keen eye on this. But my thing is, and you said this earlier in the show, and I agree with you, is the country, or for that matter, the planet, ready for disclosure? I don't feel it is. I don't. America and Europe.
Sure, it is.
We'll get there in a minute. Hold on. But America and Europe are by far the most forward-thinking part of the nation. Okay, you got North America and you got Europe. That's where the majority of forward-thinking is in the world, and that's the people who should accept this the most readily. And I would think only about 50% of them would. But I know India would embrace it to somewhat, but then they may start worshiping the freaking aliens. The Chinese are just going to flip out about it altogether. The Russians, there's no telling where the Russians are going to go. But when you start looking at whole continents like Africa and South America, it's not going to pan out the way people think it is. Even though there's been serious contact in South America, it's not going to pan out the way people think it is. You could see just from basic things how many people drove back to religion just over COVID-19, how many people redid their religion and started believing in God again. I can only imagine when we start saying ETs are real and they're visiting the planet, and without being able to say what they're here for or what they're doing, it's going to panic people. So I'm not going to panic. Go ahead. But, you can come up next, Gregor.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. This is exactly why ICE has been created, because on an international basis, this is not just America. If the truth comes out, this is worldwide. Yes. And so you're going to have to do something to try to lessen that fear, fear of vulnerability, that you would feel exposed, which is natural enough, because technically you are exposed, because these things can come and go with impunity way beyond the technology you've got. So you have to deal with it. And now, how do you deal with that? Well, from our point of view, we've thought about it. We set up working groups when we began to set up the organization and say, well, come on, what stages would we go through? And we think that the first stage is to create awareness that this is maybe not the threat that we will initially think it is, because they've been around for a long time and we don't see any real evidence that says that they are going to be an imminent threat to us. They could have done whatever they'd wanted if they'd wanted to 75 years ago. So that's the first thing to say. But what you've got to understand is, whilst the UFO topic is very popular, and especially in the social media culture, but in reality, there's so much poor stuff written about on social media platforms that's inaccurate, no evidence to back it up, and it's unlicensed. So that actually only makes the problem worse. But that's just the one UFO community. But I'm not really looking at the UFO community. ICER are trying to reach the rest of the world who are totally oblivious to this subject, and it will come as a big shock. So we think that the best way is to start from the ground up, tackle the first aspect, which is trying to lessen that fear and deal with it. And how do you do that? You create awareness programs. You start giving evidential history of the case. We start talking about that there's no obvious threat that we've seen in the last 70, 75 years. That's how you get this down if it goes worldwide in some kind of a new reality. You cannot just go, in our opinion, from, oh, let's start making contact. We know that there's a level of contact going on already through the contact experience, the abduction phenomena, however you want to describe it. We know that that's going on, but that in itself to an unsuspecting public would be terrifying to some. So we have to deal with this in a very sensitive, constructive manner. And we think that the best way to do that is basically through an educational program of saying, look, here's the evidence, here's the real history. It's not just America, it's worldwide. And we'll try to just lessen that fear. We don't want people saying, oh, we're going to get alien invaded, and people talk about fake alien invasions. I don't, that is a possibility for some. They could go down that line.
They ain't probing me, buddy. I'm just saying. See, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's one of the things that gets us in trouble all the time, because even when it's something serious, somebody like what I just said will come in and drop something like that in there, and it just automatically wants to change the outcome of something.
Yeah.
I've watched some big names talk about this over the years, and I'm not talking about in the field. I'm talking about scientists outside. I mean, I did 3 hours with Michio Keiko about this particular subject on air. It was a great conversation. And if you can't take him serious about this, who the hell can you? Let's just be honest about it. But let me let Dell in here, because I know Dell don't agree with us, so we're gonna let him come in here and tell us why he don't agree with us. But go ahead, Dell, man, you're good to go.
Well, I think this is a big disservice. I like what you're doing there, Gary, with your with ICER there. And this is the part that really gets me is someone's making a decision and determining, says, well, if we tell them that there's real aliens out there, people are going to freak out. They're going to run to religion and stuff like that. I think you do a huge disservice to people when you start deciding, you start hiding information from them. They do the same thing with archaeology stuff, even in Egypt and that, where they hide new finds and stuff like that. Or government comes in, they've done it in the States too, comes in, they seal it off, they take away all the stuff, take away all the history that's there. And this is a current topic that's been going on. I've been talking about this for a while. It's about governments and just even social groups and that trying to erase history and changing how it is in today. I think the whole part is that I think if the shock came out there that there was aliens out there and the truth was out there, I think you would have people that were scared for the little bit, but I think people would get over it pretty quick, and they would accept it that something is real like that. I just don't like the part that there's somebody in government or in the military that is there making decisions for the rest of the public. We're all the same. So somebody shouldn't be hiding this stuff. And this is the part that goes in, and maybe you can say about this there too, Joe. If the Navy's already been having dealings with extraterrestrial craft and stuff like that, why is the reason that they haven't shared that information? Are they getting technology that they don't want the rest of the public to have? And this goes into this whole thing about hiding history, hiding information.
Well, there's lots of reasons why they don't tell us, and there's lots of reasons the military doesn't. But for the military, it's more about they don't want to look weak. Even if they were getting something in exchange, they still don't want to look weak. And when a ship comes over a carrier, and this carrier is clicking 45 knots, and we're cruising along head steam, this UFO comes over first thing you hear is all planes are warned out of the area because they lose power if they get anything around this thing. This thing comes over, the carrier's in the full steam. It times it so that when the carrier goes dead, because this nuclear carrier just died underneath this UFO, this thing just comes and sets down. Well, it doesn't bode well for the U.S. Navy that at that time the most powerful ship afloat in the world just got shut down by a saucer by just flying over it. It didn't even shoot it. I mean, you kind of think no weapons work, no planes work, no elevators work, no nothing worked. And then once it sat down and landed, you got basic electronics came back on. Like the elevators and lift work, the televisions on board, the radar systems work, but none of the weapon systems work, none of the propulsion systems work. So however they regulate it, that's what's going to scare people, because they have a technology that we just don't understand. And until the government can honestly sit here and tell me, well, you know what, Joe, Gary, Mike, Udell, they're here peaceful. They're not here to eat us. They're not here to destroy us. They're not here to wipe us out. They're not here to conquer us. They're not really here to teach us. They're just more, doing what their thing is, but they're not a threat. And that's fine. And right now you can kind of sell it if you can get the people who say they're being taken to shut up. Because those people are saying they're dragging me out in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, out of my car, out of my job, out of my jail cell, wherever, and doing whatever God knows to them. So that makes people feel uneasy in the fact that, is this true? Because once you admit that aliens are real, then everybody's going to take a second look at alien contact. It's going to move up in the standings quite considerably. And there's another problem. I've talked about this, and I know Gary's heard me talk about this as well. There are a group of abductees that are already saying once this is disclosed, they're going to start suing everybody because the government allowed this to happen. And then they're going to want to go after the government to punish them for allowing this to happen. So, one, if you're going to want disclosure, I think one of the first things you're going to have to figure out is how to give amnesty to the government.
One of the things that we have talked about in our working groups before we launched is if it does come out, it's going to be a shock, but there will also probably be for a time a backlash, one against government, probably the American government.
Oh yeah, the most.
And two against the press, because you could argue that the press were complicit, or you could argue that they were just victims taken in by the government. I'm sure people could argue both sides on that. But from my first point of view, the whole point is it's going to be a big reaction. And we do foresee that for a time there will probably be a reaction against authority for lying for so long. And I suspect that the mainstream media may feel very bitter for a time towards government because they've been, in a sense, a part of the cover-up. Even if it was from an innocent, ignorant point of view, they have, in a sense, been a part of it. And I think when the press find out, as I think they are, they're just beginning to realize that there is this decades-old lie. But again, you have to move beyond that. This is not about taking retribution, and I think everybody in ICER accepts that there may be legitimate government reasons that we're totally oblivious. There may be official reasons, secrets that we're not privy to, that we'll never be privy to, that say, yes, we did it for this particular reason. I personally think that after the end of the Second World War, you go into a Cold War scenario. There was probably very good reasons why it was kept secret then, because it could have easily triggered accidentally a Third World War. It was a very nervous Cold War period, the 40s, the 50s and 60s, as it were. So I think that was a very nervous period, and so it probably should have been kept secret then. However, where I've always personally, this is not ICER's perspective, this is my perspective, I've always felt that when the Soviet Union collapsed, that was the time when they could have said, okay, we'll now address this issue on the UFO subject and let's talk about it. I think that if we have a revelation soon, or in 6 months, a year, whatever, but it's coming, when we have that, I don't think governments, especially the American government, will produce all the stuff that they've got, all the research that's been going on. That will still stay in a very deep classified world. However, the mere acceptance that there is an intelligence interacting will be the key thing. And but we have to move beyond that. And it will be a question of saying, look, just admit that you did it, just own up to it, and then let's move on for the benefit of the planet. Because there is no point in getting bitter and twisted for too long or at all, because what's it going to achieve? It's not going to achieve anything. It means we've still got the problem that we've got a new reality, and let's try to alleviate the fear that could be there by lessening it. And that's why, again, ICER thinks that the initial approach is awareness, to create the awareness, to lessen the fear, to alleviate the psychological trauma that may come. Because, honestly, when I've talked to reporters, it's so clear they don't have a clue They may be brilliant about politics. They may be brilliant in depth about other things. But when it comes to this issue, it's like a child in the playground. They don't have any reference point.
Maybe reporters over there, the mainstream media here, they just spoon feed them on shit. That's really how it goes, They don't have a mind of their own. There's no journalistic integrity left in American media, not that I've seen.
Recently,
I have. Well, even the BBC, even things like that, they're so controlled. Everything's just so controlled. Yeah, and then they're going to say it's a matter of national security. That's it. It's not going to be like, oh, I feel betrayed. They're just going to come out with that statement, and people are going to understand, like, okay, I get it.
The other thing to consider as well is when we
matter of national security. Okay, but if you're ET, last thing you want to do is deal with humans, because humans are so corrupt. Humans are so corrupt. So why would you want to deal with humans? Or whatever they're getting out of it.
I think you can. I kind of look at it this way, that, and it's often been said, is that I don't know in the secret. You've got to put it in perspective. 90% of this subject is hidden in the secret world of government's intelligence agencies. We only know maybe 10% is the public domain. So
but you can know. All right, you may not know a situation. People may be lying to you, but you can look at the outskirts of the evidence. There's evidence inside, there's evidence outside. It's how the residual effect of something that happens. People have seen them, you've seen them, things traveling around, all unexplained, they're coming and going. But technology-wise, we're at a state now, I think, where people could much more accept the whole alien thing.
I think we could accept it. I think with the right approach, we could very quickly accept it, because I think most people recognize that with the vastness of space and everything that we know.
Quick question, Gary. Just quick question for you. So we're talking current world politics. I mean, we know we got Putin as a leader, we got Xi Jinping as leader, we got Biden as leader, we've got Mr. Pink Shorts in Canada as a leader.
Oh God.
But my point is, who, as a nation, as a world, as the Terran race, who would you feel comfortable with coming out and saying, all right, look, the aliens are here. They're definitely here, guys. This is what's going on. Would any of us trust any of these people I just mentioned? I mean, would you take this to heart? Would you?
John Cleese. I would choose John Cleese, man. And you know why? Because he's the guy you want as the delegate to aliens. He's an honest person. I actually met John Cleese here in Ithaca when he taught at Cornell for a short time. That's the guy. So I'm going with John Cleese, man. I'm a big Monty Python.
Oh Lordy! No more drugs for Michael. He's cut off officially now.
John Cleese, come on, tell him about it. Gary, tell him about John Cleese. Tell Joe about John.
John Cleese is a very funny man, but I didn't know that he would do that.
Yeah, a fish called.
But I mean, really, Gary. I mean, really, who would you pick? I mean, if you could, well, if you could apply pressure to somebody.
I don't think, from an ICER point of view, there's anything to be gained by having a hypothetical guess. The disclosure that we kind of think that we may be on the brink of is going to come from America, because they've been the world dominant country on this subject going back to 1940s, and probably Roswell being the catalyst for that. We don't know what effect the likes of China and Russia would say. I have absolutely no doubt that there's sightings in China, no doubt that there's sightings in Russia. What they will say, I don't know, but we do know historically that America has been the dominant country on this subject. So, and this is technically where all the revelations are coming out now. Nobody else is saying it. Other countries aren't saying it, but it's beginning to filter around other countries because of what's going on in America now. So, what would you think?
What would you think would be the best way for revealing aliens? Would you think like a scenario like in the movie Independence Day, where just these huge motherships just show up at every major city all around the globe, or do you think that people would believe that less than having the government tell you that, hey, aliens are out there, and have their made up news channels discuss it as well?
I don't think they're going to want to go down the Independence Day scenario.
Well, I'm not saying the whole movie about them attacking, but just showing up at every major capital around the world.
It made me nervous.
I think technically there is a case for saying that when an admission comes that these things are real, whether it be extraterrestrial, non-human, or a combination of both, that there will be a certain amount of initial alarm, concern. That would be natural, because you would feel naturally vulnerable. And that's why you need to kick in quite quickly with awareness programs and say, well, actually, these things have been around for at least 75 years. And what we know of them, there's not really an aggressive agenda. We're not saying that they're perfect, because they're not. There are things. However, you've got to try to immediately throttle down on the anxiety aspect, because a lot of people could get frightened, because it's such a strange thing to get your head around. Absolutely everybody is in agreement that should contact be acknowledged, that it would be the most profound moment in human history. So that's what we're on the brink on. And that's an incredible moment that, all that you think about the history of the whole world and the hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years that humans have been around in their present form. I know that'll lead into another debate, but in the present form, shall we say, that they've never been around to acknowledge this, but we might just live in a world where this acknowledgement comes, and it's going to be a huge shock. And because it's been so well kept secret and stigmatized, then that's what's going to be the greatest shock. And you can almost see it when the mainstream press are interviewing it now. It's almost like I can't believe I'm saying this on air on a mainstream news program. It's like they're having difficulty processing that they're having a serious discussion with somebody about it. And that just shows you the level of stigma that there's been, the conditioning, subliminal, everything from 1953. Everybody born after 1953 has lived in a world of debunking. So that's a huge thing that needs to be addressed. And I think we're finally, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, beginning to see that.
I wouldn't agree with you on debunking. Desensitization, not so much debunking. And the reason I say that is there's definitely been an ongoing program to show humans or make humans aware of extraterrestrials. I mean, it pretty much, if you go back to about 1850 and up, you'll notice a movement in our planet to acknowledge extraterrestrials in books and science in all kind of ways. Well, in today's society, every freaking TV show, every science show pretty much got an alien involved in it, or some other planet, or some type of extraterrestrial. We're so inundated with it today. It's on our keychains, on our potato chips, on our Coca-Cola cans, on our coffee cans, on our movie screens, on our Netflix and Hulu and everywhere else. That, in a lot of ways, I think they did it on purpose to help desensitize us to the fact that there is going to be something.
Absolutely, it's possible.
Something, different.
I was going to say that.
So, I mean,
Del was going to say that too. I was reading his mind.
Well, we used to talk about this a long time ago. We call it the desensitization program, because we had stumbled across some stuff with some cartoons that was really weird.
KY.
See, if you had the aliens show up on Keeping Up with the Kardashians, I think you would alleviate all the fear that you had there about alien races being out there.
Keeping Up with the Kardashians, that would be interesting. It would be goofy, but it'd be interesting. But no, I mean, I know it's serious, and I know it's going to take some more work to get some stuff out. I mean, it seems like with presidents now, every time we take 2 steps forward, we take 4 steps backwards, and then we got to come back again. So I'm hoping we're not going to see that with Biden. I'm hoping we're going to see it more. But I never know with one Uncle Joe. Some days he seems like he's aware, and some days I think he's off in some other dimension somewhere, sniffing crack cocaine or something. I don't know where to go with this guy. So it makes me a little nervous, especially that he's got the nuclear football. He still makes me a little nervous.
So, Gary, you're a former detective. It's a matter of perspective. Whenever anybody's experiencing anything, it's perspective and experience. But what's the aliens' perspective? What do they get out of it? What's their day in the life, and why are they messing with us? Because certainly they're around, and I'm seeing stories. Just one recently, how there was a swarm over the Nimitz, a swarm of them, all different shapes too, cone shape, cylinder shape, round. So the shapes, there's a lot to that. I don't know. It's very, it's almost like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? Where this, like, people got the vision and they wanted to go out west and all this. I feel like Joe's right, absolutely, about easing people into something, putting those thoughts into your head. Captain Kirk going out there boinking every girl in space, man. He's got his little communicator. Now people are on their cell phone. I think people in developed nations are more apt to accept, as long as it doesn't interfere with their personal lives. But I think that it might bring also the world together in a way. So I think it would be ultimately positive.
I hope you're right. What do you think, Gary?
Was there a question in there? I mean, it was a great speech, but I'm not sure there was a question in there.
What do you think that an alien, what alien's life is like every day? Like, what's their purpose?
Well, how can I answer that? Because one, I've never met an alien. Two, I've never seen a spaceship.
How do you know? Maybe Joe Montaldo's an
alien. Well, maybe we all are. Maybe we're all from Mars originally.
Our DNA,
but what I'm saying is, it's a hypothetical question that I can't answer, and I'm not going to answer it from an ICER perspective or a personal perspective, because I just don't see any point. It's just, how the hell would I know?
But you know their activity. You people.
Well, but that's not the question. That's not the question.
From all the important stories that are out there, from all the military people and all the pilots, all the big muckety mucks, there's activity, and around that activity, you can kind of judge what something is doing, right?
Well, if you were going to do that, then I would say, if we were going to really look at this subject open and honestly, in a more disclosure world, then for me, the James Fox film, The Phenomenon, is the best history documentary ever made on this subject. If we look at the best military documentary so far, it's without a shadow of a doubt Robert Hastings' UFOs and Nukes, which is another powerful story. And I think the biggest correlation that says that they're not here to hurt us, shall we say, or to dominate us, conquer us, is the fact that there is this strong historical correlation to nuclear weapons, going right back to the 40s, and people never realised that when we talk about Roswell, middle of nowhere as it was at the time, and then I say to them, well, you do realise it was the world's first atomic bomb squadron, and you think of all the places in all the world, in all the bars, then that's why it's not a coincidence.
Where they showed up at. Yeah, no, you know that's why they showed up. So that's why they turn up, and probably after we detonate the atomic bomb in the Second World War and the test prior to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that probably sent a shockwave out into space, and some species said, "Wow, these have reached a level of attainment. They've split the atom. They've got the ability to destroy this beautiful planet." And I think that's why they start turning up in numbers. And historically, there is this massive correlation between nuclear weapons. And basically, that correlation is they don't like nuclear weapons. They appear to be pointing out to us, showing up at military test ranges, nuclear facilities, nuclear submarines, nuclear aircraft carriers, etc., power plants. They do not like nuclear weapons. Now, again, I can only speak for myself. My pet theory, because we know that UFOs are seen coming in and out of large bodies of water, and we know that there's a lot of activity now off the west coast, the Nimitz encounter, etc. I do suspect that this might be their planet as well, in the sense that we know more about the surface of the moon and Mars than we do about the ocean. We only know 5% of the ocean. So that means in our deepest, darkest trenches, there may well be underground bases, whether they've been here for a long time or whatever. But this would account for the objects going in and out of water. They're regularly seen, and of course the transmedium object, the video that's surfaced recently is a testament to that. And apparently they sent a submarine, they didn't find any wreckage, etc., etc. So there is a strong correlation to UFOs and water, UFOs and nukes. I suspect that's why they don't like. This is a personal perspective. This is why they don't like nuclear weapons, because if for any reason we destroy this planet, inadvertently you destroy their habitat too.
and I think that's why personally
that's possible if their technology is close to ours, but if they're a 500,000, a million, 5 million, 25 million years ahead of us, I imagine they could clean up the radiation pretty easy. I mean, we're ourselves
perhaps
not
so,
that far.
perhaps.
Well, I mean, from what I understand right now, we're less than 100 years away from cleaning up plutonium. So maybe even sooner than that from some of the things I've heard coming out of China. So it's something we'll solve. Actually, what I've heard was, let me restate that. So what they're doing is they're taking spent rods and re-energizing them and reusing them until they're depleted completely. So this is a whole new technology out there. So because basically somebody decided, you like Yucca Mountain. If nobody knows what Yucca Mountain is, that's where we store all of our nuclear waste for, not for medical knowledge. This is for weapons grade stuff. So they decided that they could reuse this. This could be used to power things. So there's actually reactors made just to case this kind of stuff now. So I think even we're doing it. So I really would think an extraterrestrial race could probably figure that out. I think a lot of times they're watching for the most part. They've probably been here a long, long time. I mean, probably some of the best evidence that suggests they've been here is like some of the stuff that comes out of India, even some of the South American stuff really puts them, way back hanging out. I mean, I love to tell this to people, but if you really want to know if UFOs are real or not, go back about 500 years, and anything beyond that that's flying around in the sky is a true UFO. It's an flying. I mean, nothing was flying in the sky but birds back then.
Yeah.
So if you had something seen, and there's lots of cases throughout history where there were things seen, not just seen hovering, but with beams of light coming out of them that suggest that no, the planet's been being visited for a long time. For the most part, I think they really would like to see us unite ourselves and become an active member of something. But right now, and I agree with you, nukes make them nervous because it's not so much what we can do here, it's what we can do when we get our asses out in space with them and start nuking other people's planets or asteroids. Because, one of the plans is to nuke Mars to release the water. I'm like, really? We're going to nuke it? We can't drink it after we nuke it? What kind of stupid idea is this?
Well, you know what? You have to look at the mentality, and you can't say you don't know aliens, and all of a sudden you say they don't like nukes. Where do you think the technology came from? And I'll say this: I live in Ithaca.
It came from
let me talk. I live in Ithaca. I met this man named Boyce McDaniel many years ago when I first came to Ithaca, 1996. And he died early 2000s. I used to go to Cornell for all this science, man. Everything they do, they're going to land somewhere and put a rocket up, whatever they're doing, and also physics, which I'm a huge fan of. He was one of the guys who worked on the bomb. He was he was actually part of the final bomb check at Trinity, if you know the story. And I'm like, when it comes to splitting atoms, and he's like, it's an incredible power. It was virtually handed to us, is what he said. And he didn't get into anymore because he was very old. He didn't get into those details, But he was started talking about cold fusion and energy that you can get from the bomb, the things that were moving in the right direction. And sometimes with an amazing, powerful weapon also comes that great responsibility, and people snap up to it. Obviously we got the bomb from Hitler. Hitler was not going to use the bomb for anything good. You know what he was going to do with it, and it was all about the balance of power. The balance of power. Maybe people have to learn to live together in the balance of power first before anything happens.
Yeah. I'm glad Gary's out there working on this. Maybe he can help get some of this out.
Yeah, man.
Let me ask you something, Gary, real quick. So where are y'all going to start? I mean, y'all. So were you based out of England?
Well, no, we're in 27 countries. So,
well, no, I know that, but I mean, who? Okay, let me rephrase that question. I mean, basically, what I'm looking for is who's going to be running from where, and how's it going to run out?
Right. Yeah. Let me give you a structure. Basically, because we've registered as an international NGO, as a proper organisation registered in Portugal, we have to abide by the legal rules of an NGO. So now we have three bodies: a managing body, a general assembly, etc., fiscal body. The managing body comprises now of 7 people. The president of ICER is the very well-respected researcher, a long-time researcher, Roberto Panotti from Italy. He's got 50 years research, ex-military officer. He's been around a long, long time, knows everybody and been around, done everything kind of thing. I'm the vice president, and then we have 4 continental directors. We actually are on 5 continents, but we in Asia, we only have Japan, and Sri Lanka, whereas we have 15 countries in Europe. We have America and Canada, and obviously we also have Australasia, Australia, and New Zealand. So we've got some big parts of the world. So the continental directors, well, the North American continental director is Don Schmidt, who's obviously very well known for Roswell, etc., extremely well respected. In Canada, we've got Victor Vigiani, who's organised loads of conferences, and he has the Zedlands Communications that he has his platform there. So we've got Victor and Don in North America, covering North America. I could go on. We've got some excellent people. We've got the guy who runs the Hessdalen program, Erling Strand. We're talking the Lights project in the Hessdalen Valley in Norway. He's a part of ICER.
The next time you have a meet, maybe I should think about approaching Bigelow or maybe Elon. They might want to throw a little, weight that way, give you a little help. Or
we're not for profit. We're non-political.
Well, no. But what I mean is you don't have to get a profit out of it, but they can help get equipment and stuff like that, or help you get processes going.
What I was going to say is that because we're a not-for-profit, we're entirely seeking donations.
Oh, okay.
Because that will allow us. So, because we're not making it there for money. So the point is, like any other NGO, they're reliant on donations. And so that's why we're contacting all forms of society in the hope that they say, yeah, I agree with you. We've got to start creating awareness programs. We'd like to have a meeting with you. We'd like to donate this. And what we're reiterating to them is we're always going to stay independent, because people are already saying, oh, well, would you work with the military and this, that, and the other? We'll work with anyone, but we'll retain our independence as long as it's for the benefit.
See, that was a good point there, Joe. It says, yeah, if you guys could hook up with Elon Musk, he's throwing up satellites nonstop all around the globe there for his Starlink there. If you had part of a technology with that to track any type of movement that was going, that the military and government
would might be what he's doing. Go ahead, yeah. But I think that's what
I was just going to say that. I mean, I've never talked to Elon Musk, and he would be a great guy to speak to. However, and he's doing some great work in what he's doing. But his recent comments on the UAP phenomena, as far as I'm aware, are very negative.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. No, that's what I've heard. I may be wrong. But going back to your point that you said earlier, Joe, you said about Michio Kaku, and he has very recently gone totally about face in his attitude. He is one of the rock star scientists, as you say, a really popular guy. And he has said and he appeared at UFO conference in 2019 in Barcelona, I think it was, in Spain. And basically he said that after viewing the 3 FLIR videos frame by frame, he had to change his whole attitude. And he said that we've studied these things. We don't know how they move. We don't know how what propulsion they're using, blah, blah, blah. And at that point there, when they've done the frame by frame analysis of all these videos, he's had to say, well, I'm going to wake up to the fact that actually now people are going to have to prove to me that they're not extraterrestrial, non-human. And so his attitude has changed, but you've still got people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's absolutely still got his head in the sand.
But what's interesting about this, though, I'll tell you a little secret. I guess it was about 12. It was right around the time Katrina happened. So about 14, 15 years ago. I had Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, Paul Levesque, and 2 other physicists come on 5 weeks in a row. This is what I did, right?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Michio came on. We talked for 3 hours about the stepping stone theory, because he said, well, I don't know, extraterrestrial life, because I couldn't believe he came on UFO Undercover. My wife got him booked. I have no idea how she did it. And so I was like, well, you're saying they couldn't be here. And I'm like, why couldn't they be here? And he said, well, how are they going to get here? I said, well, Mitchell, let me ask you a question. I said, we're going to do it like this. I said, we're going to put a base on the moon. Then we're going to put a base out at zone L11, which will be a great launching platform that's between the moon and Mars. We're going to colonize Mars. We're going to put several little things out in the asteroid belt, because we're going to start mining it. Before long, we'll have something around Titan and Io and a couple other places. We'll have something out on Charon around Pluto. Next thing you know, we'll be out in the middle of the Oort cloud. Well, from the Oort cloud to Proxima is only 2 light years, and to middle of Proxima is only 1 light year. So you build a station halfway to Proxima and then another one on Proxima. So now you've got a stepping stone. You're going back and forth from Proxima on a regular basis. It's just part of the traffic flow, and we'll get out in it. And so, and the galaxy is now 160,000 light years instead of 100,000. So the average humans, just us, with not much greater technology than we have right now, can explore the entire known galaxy in just 320 million years. And everybody's like, well, God, Joe, that's forever. No, because our planet's going to live for at least another 4 billion years. That means we could explore our own galaxy literally hundreds of thousands of times without ever traveling the speed of light, and have colonies and places all over the place and just steadily be moving back and forth around. But when I told this to Michio, he was kind of like, it caught him off guard. And we started talking backwards. He said, well, you're absolutely right. I guess they could. And if they are more advanced than us, they could have been doing this for quite some time. So I got him to admit to it. Well, I did the same thing to Neil deGrasse Tyson the following week. I actually told him, I said, well, I was talking with Michio about this, so let me get your take on what you think about this. So he had to confess the fact that it is plausible, because I didn't want to try to trap him into a light speed or portal technology. It's too far beyond where we are right now. And as them being scientists, they're going to have to argue that, no. So I said, no, let's do it standard technology, slow speed, snail pace, basically, like old snail mail. And they had to concede. So all 5 physicists had to concede to the fact that, yes, that we could do this. And we could do this with not much greater technology than where we are sitting right now. So it was a great thing to get him to admit to. I got it still on tape even today. So it's nice. So recently, you're right, Michio just recently came out again. So with him and a couple of others in there, with Bigelow and a few others, it's a shame Elon ain't in there. But because Elon wants to go to freaking Mars, you'd think he'd definitely want to see if there was anything out there. Yeah, you would think, or maybe he does, and he just keeps it on the down low. I don't even pretend to know anything about Elon, other than what I see on television, a few things I've read about him, a couple of specials here and there. He just seems to keep to himself for the most part, and does something crazy every once in a while, invent something cool, But other than that, he seems to be a going. So yeah, it's good to know that you're willing to go out and maybe talk to some of these people. Maybe they, because I know Bigelow is looking for somebody legit. He really is. Bigelow has not given up on this subject. This is something that's near and dear to his heart. And he really, but the other organization that he backed a long time ago, I'm not going to mention their name because I don't want to hate, but were a big disappointment to him.
Oh, that To the Stars Academy?
Well, I'm just saying that he was involved with a very famous UFO organization.
Trump University.
Trump University, yeah. That was just, in the end, he said it was just a big disappointment. He didn't learn anything, and he spent a lot of money and didn't get nothing out of it because he said they were very unprofessional. So he is looking someone like Gary could probably present this in a much better fashion. You might actually get this guy back involved, and it would be good, Gary. He could get
obviously, one of the reasons why we launch is we think that we've got some very well, for example, this is the credibility of some of the scientists that we've got. We've got a professor called Lakazar Filipov from Bulgaria, and he trained their first astronauts. So this is a man who was passionate that there is life in space, and he's been battling, in a sense, within a closed system for years, like most scientists who believed that there was something going on with UFOs, UAP. And, to his credit, he has joined us, and he's willing to put his name on the line and say, look, we have to deal with this because it's real. Now, he's seen that, but what we need to do, and in fact, one of the things that ICER has done as part of its launch, yes, we did the 60-case summary document for the press, but what we also did is we created what was called the ICER papers, a little think tank report, just 4 essays, but 3 of those essays from some of our national representatives were about how science and academia need to finally meet up with ufology, because we have to all work together. We're not better than anybody. We're not worse. I think in the past there's probably been a certain arrogance from the scientific community. We're not going to work with ufologists because they're idiots, kind of thing. But I think if they know where to look, there are some very, very serious scientific-based researchers, and we all kind of know the best ones who are out there, and most of them are now with ICER. So we've got some very, very good people who a mixture of scientists and academia and researchers, and we've all signed that same oath. So this is unprecedented. That's never happened before in ufology, which is always historically always very divided. And where we are is 27 countries. And I'm sure when we identify more, we will grow. But at the moment, it's 27 countries. So if you think about it on a map scale, we're covering a big part: Europe, North America, Australia, New Zealand, and that's a big footprint. And so realistically, if we are going to try to change anything, we all have to work together for the common aim. And we've got to lose all the egos. We've just got to sit around a table and say, look, let's work for the common aim. And this historically has never happened in ufology. They've usually destroyed themselves. And I've often said that, in a sense, the reason why ufology, if there is such a thing as ufology, is that if you think about it, there has been some excellent research groups in the past. You've had NICAP in the 50s and 60s under Kehoe, was initially a very, very powerful APRO, etc. But you'd have thought that we'd have had more political impact at national level, but it's never really happened because it's never been able to properly present itself on an international basis. And this is what ICER is trying to do, is say, look, actually the time is now to, when we are moving probably to some form of disclosure, whether it be now or in 6 months or a year's time, it does look like the cards, the stigma is beginning to reduce. And if this happens more and more, there will be more serious discussion. So let's all come together for the benefit of the subject, for the benefit of mankind, because we're going to have to deal with this new reality. And I think we've got to just kind of all say, look, let's stop arguing. Nobody's better than any other, but let's stop the egos and let's just work together for the common aim of humanity and prepare for a new reality.
That'd be nice.
Out of the 27 countries that that you and your group are all in, what country so far have you noticed has been the most, I guess, sharing of information or being disclosed as much as they can? Like, it's not like how the U.S. or whatever keeps everything sort of tight-lipped in that. But out of the countries that you're involved in, which one has been sort of the most friendly to share information?
I don't think the word friendly is the right word, but some countries have disclosed militarily. For example, our Argentinian national representative is a lady called Andrea Simondoni, and she recently, since ICER has been created, she recently sat down with the Argentinian defense minister and had serious discussions about, releasing documents, etc., on historical cases and things like that. We know that A.J. Javard, a very well-known researcher from Brazil, he's famous for putting on huge conferences on a regular basis in Brazil, but he's arguably the top South American researcher. He has at some of his conferences, and I've been to several of his conferences in Brazil, there has been in attendance a general from the Brazilian Air Force. Can you imagine a general from the US Air Force attending a MUFON conference? I don't think so. Can you imagine that in the UK? No chance, because of the stigma that's been attached. I've been also there present when a Uruguayan colonel has been there in uniform. So some countries are more open. South American countries, where there has been a huge plethora of sightings from the 80s and 90s onwards, they have, in a sense, they're far more interested and being more open. One of our deputy representatives is Julio Chamorro, who was a Peruvian military colonel. He's now with us, retired military colonel. He's still a pilot. still flies, but he's now a part of us. So it's really, we've got some very capable people, and what we want to see is more of that. And I think if you then started to get some traction, and some countries, I mean, for example, we know that Japan has also created its own Navy task force to look into these objects. And I know from certain conversations with certain people that will remain private, who are close to the top of this subject, that other nations too are setting up things and are asking questions, because they're beginning to acknowledge, okay, it's now okay to talk about it. And that can only be beneficial, because the more we talk about it, the more we can prepare, and the more we can begin to look for a new reality by working together. So I think ICER's role is to say, look, we are absolutely new. We're only 3 days old, but our intention is to take it to the highest levels of governance. But you can't just go to the UN, which people think, oh, you can just ask a question in the UN. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of protocols. But there are now study committees that have been set up, where consultative groups that you can be, if you reach a certain level of acceptability to the UN, you are then recognized as a consultative group who can start asking questions. But effectively, to ask a question in the UN, you have to have a country. It's a nation that introduces the questions. Mia, you can't ask a question, but a country can adopt ICER, for example, and say, I believe in what you're doing, and we will now ask a question on your behalf, because we're supporting you as like we're kind of like chaperoning you, and we'll raise a question on your behalf. That's how it works. So from ICER's point of view, we're only just starting. This is just the beginning of a long road, but we want to take it to the highest levels of governance, including the UN. But you can't just do that overnight. It's going to take several years, and we're in for the long haul when it's not an overnight thing. Now, that could change significantly if there was a sudden revelation by America that said, yeah, okay, in a year's time, here's the report. We conclude that it is extraterrestrial, non-human. We don't know what it is. That's what I think. That's as much as you get out of an acknowledgement for Big D. They'll never, I don't think, release all the secrets that they've been doing for many years. That'll stay in the secret world, but that would be enough to create Big D, because that would be a world big story, 24/7, every news channel, like COVID has been, like a terrorist bombing. It's 24/7. That's when you know you've got big disclosure, when it's on every channel, every news channel, 24/7. That's the only thing you're talking about. That'll be what Big D looks like. And we're not there yet. And how long that'll be, we don't know. But the fact, what ICE is trying to do is say, look, we have to begin to realize that now we're accepting that these things are flying around in the airspace. Yes, I know that the press, people are wanting to think, well, it's secret US technology, it's secret foreign adversary. But that's pretty frightening if it's secret foreign adversary, because then you really are invulnerable. But it makes you wonder, if you talk to anybody who's really been involved, the Commander Fravor, the Ryan Graves, the pilots, etc., the Alex D, they're all saying that these things are moving in such different ways. It can't be foreign technology. It's not just a 10-year leap or a 50-year leap. It's a 1,000-year leap kind of thing. It's multi-generational leap. So that's where we're at. So eventually this discussion is going to go down the line of concluding that it's not from here. And then you need to be ready for that. And that's why ICE has been created, to start getting ready for that. And I think as we keep moving down this line closer to that kind of disclosure moment, then I think hopefully by then major business corporations will realize that actually this subject needs to be treated seriously, that governments all around the world are going to think, well, how are we going to tell our people, how is it going to affect them? So again, I think this first step of the awareness programs, and then once you've got over that, then you can look at communication, then you can look at consciousness as an aspect of this subject, which we know it is, but you can't just do that, in our opinion, straight away. You have to make the first step and baby steps to get to that stage. But it could change quickly if next month or this June we get a report that says, yeah, it's real, it's extraterrestrial, non-human, then we'd be in a big disclosure moment. And then you probably get to the UN a lot quicker, because the UN would go, what are we going to do about it? And there'd be a real major panic. So you've got all these ramifications of what could happen, but logically it's likely to come down the line. But I do think that with all the comments by the senior people in intelligence services, CIA, senior military figures, senior political figures, I mean, there was a great quote by, I think it was Martin Heinrich the other day, where he's walking along and TMZ walking alongside him, interview him. Little clip. It's maybe 5 or 6 days old. I've put it on my website page for UFO Truth magazine. It's on there, so have a look at the Facebook page on there, the link to it. But basically, he's walking along, and the guy from TMZ is just asking the questions. And at one point, he kind of stops and says, look, these things are flying around. We don't know what they are. And what could survive the G-forces that are inside. He really goes into a little bit of a speech for about 30 seconds, and he says a lot in that. So again, it's like Marco Rubio saying that they're flying over our weapons storage areas, our sensitive military installations. I mean, you wouldn't, if you think about the Cold War saga, if this was a Russian bomber, a Soviet bomber, it'd have been blown out of the sky over American, not off the coast, over the actual land mass. Anything would be taken out, which makes me think that this is not foreign technology, and it's and based on everybody who's involved, they're all saying it, from the pilots, etc., the technicians, it isn't American technology. It's simply too advanced.
Yeah, the Americans ain't letting the only time the Russians or the Chinese get to fly anything, or just the Russians, I'm sorry, not the Chinese, that get to fly anything over our country is when they schedule those flyovers, Area 51, from the arms agreement we have with them. Yeah. So we get to fly over their country too, but the thing about it is, anytime other than that, like, when they go straight into Alaska, first thing we do is scramble some F-22s that fly their ass out of there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or like if they get too close to Europe, no, y'all just back on out of here. You can get a little closer.
Absolutely, just escort them out the airspace.
Yeah.
This isn't happening, is it?
Yeah. So if one of them managed to penetrate like to Houston, they'd blow the crap out of them out of the sky as soon as they see them.
Absolutely. So it's not that.
Yeah, it's not that. Whatever it is beyond any technologies we're currently running. Well, my favorite thing is Foo Fighters were always great for me because, it was way advanced and all the military saw them. So everybody thought it was everybody else.
One of my passions is Foo Fighters.
Yeah. So, when you come forward, somebody says, well, what about today? I said, well, we can replicate the Foo Fighters as far as swarming them and doing stuff like that. But the speeds they moved and the maneuvers they made, we still can, even with our drones, which our drones are pretty sophisticated these days. We can do a lot of things that kind of look like a Foo Fighter. But the speeds these pilots describe, we're just nowhere near these kind of speeds, man.
Let me give you a quote, because one of the first case in the 60 case summary is one you're probably not aware of. 1942, a Royal Air Force document that's in Kew, the archives in London. And it's a military record, and it basically says a crew of a Lancaster bomber were on a raid near Turin when they see a huge circular metallic disc, hundreds of feet in diameter. And they see it twice. On the outward, going to do the raid, and on the way back, they see it again. Now, what did we have flying of that description in 1942? And the answer is nil. So it wasn't just glowing balls of light. There's another case. There's another case from 1944, similar, Lancaster crew. They see a huge cylindrical object fly alongside them for 5 minutes that's 4 times the size of the Lancaster bomber, which was one of the bigger 4-engine bombers of the Second World War.
I had a friend of mine from England try to tell me, well, Joe, that was a Zeppelin. I'm like, wait. I said, did you just tell me a Zeppelin flew up on the side of a bomber? I'm like, first, if they'd have shot the damn thing, holes all up in it.
Absolutely.
I said, Zeppelins aren't that fast, my friend. I said, even back in the day, World War bombers, they're 200, 250, 300 miles an hour. There ain't no Zeppelin going that fast. I just don't want to be the one to break your heart. So, no, I don't think it was Zeppelins. But that's what they, the Texas airship, they always tried to post off.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't know if it wasn't. I don't want to say it was alien because I don't know if it was or not. But whatever it was interesting. It scared the crap out of that town for a long time.
Absolutely.
What was that, Christopher? Oh, Christopher's writing in from. Oh man, no, yeah, I know who you are. Yeah, from Sharon, you're part of the Arthur C. Clarke group, right? Yeah, because we work with them still. Um, he was writing in. He said, "How do you get involved? You're going to have a website where we can find you."
Yeah. The website is ICER.network, and that'll pull you up our website. And then we've got a Facebook page, so it'll link to all of that. And if you haven't seen it, we've come up with what I think a video that should go viral because it's never been done before, to highlight the very international nature of ICER. What we did was we put a little promo together. I think I might have sent you a link to it, and it's 2 minutes 10. But what it shows is 14 of our national representatives, each giving a line of speech in their own language, and we've put it in subtitles in the settings, translated it into 14 languages, and you watch that, and that's never been done. And it's some of our half of our national representatives. They all do a line each, but you should watch it, and I think it's really, really cool. And our German representative, Robert Fleischer, put that together. And we had a real good barnstorming session. And somebody during that barnstorming session said, well, why don't everybody say one line each in their own language? That'll show us that we're very international. And when you see it put together, it's very, very effective. So I would urge anybody to go to the ICER network, see the promo, go to the ICER Facebook page. It's on there. I kind of run that. And I'm posting stuff all the time. But it's really, really good. And if you think it's good, share it, because that will make a difference. Because again, if people see that, they will realize how serious and potentially how vitally important ICER could be in a world where we're going towards a new reality. We need to be doing something.
Well, I agree. We need to be doing something. I've been bitching about this for years. It's right now we still do a lot of research, but it's somebody asked me just the other day why don't I do more public speaking, because at this point it takes up more of my time than it's actually worth, because I mean I have such a big audience on the radio. It's hard for me to, the other day somebody, well, why don't you come speak here? It's like 150 people, which is great. I love to go sit down and talk with people because it's a lot of fun. But my schedules are so busy right now, it's just not efficient for me to do it. It's just easier for me to just let people know I'm going to be here doing this or I'm going to be here doing that. Once you come listen on the air, it just works out. But then it's, you reach more people away. I was picking a good friend of mine the other day from the BBC, because I like to give him shit, because we go to 38 countries that they don't go to. And he's like, yeah, you just rubbing it in. I said, hey, I'm just not a man to offend everybody like y'all do. Y'all just keep offending people. And he just keep cracks me up. But we legit, right now, as far as I know, there's not a country in the world we do not broadcast to.
Okay, that's impressive.
So we know we got now people, before I say this, it's funny, but it's true. We do have listeners in North Korea. We have about 5 from last time I checked. But what bothers me about North Korea and Venezuela and places like that where we have listeners is it has to be someone higher up. First, they have to have a cell phone or a computer of some sort just to get us over there. Now, see, like South Korea, we have a huge listening base in South Korea, over 50,000 listeners, all over the planet, and we go all over. Like Iran, we actually have more than 40,000 listeners in Iran, which is amazing to me. We have them in Pakistan. There's not a country in the Middle East we don't. There's nobody in Africa we don't. It's funny because a good friend of mine was picking on me about this the other day. And because she's got some family that lives in Kenya, in this little village down there, and she was laughing because she was on my show. And she said, oh, yeah, they were listening to me. And I'm like, really? She's like, oh, yeah, Joe. She said, everybody got cell phones. She said, let me tell you what. She said, they ain't got running water or bathrooms, but they got a damn cell phone. I was like, you got to be shitting me. She's like, no. She said, they're putting in cell phone towers everywhere, man. And the governments over there, come to find out, give a lot of free cell phones away, which is kind of cool. So for people like you and I, Gary, it gives us another avenue to get into places we would not get into.
From an ICER perspective, we would love to know if there was genuine researchers who have been doing long time work in the likes of African countries and Asian countries that we're not aware of. We're not really knowing anybody that's really those kind of credible people that we can approach. And for us, it's not about quantity of national representative. It's rather about quality. We'd rather have less, and they have to kind of be vetted to that they've got a body, a track record of genuine research. So a lot of people are saying, "Oh, can I get involved with ICER?" And we're politely saying, "Well, it depends what you are, which country you're in. Show us your kind of research." Because you need to be careful that when you're doing something on an international scale, you've got to have credibility, and every one of our countries has got to have credibility, else it will weaken the whole thing.
Oh no, I agree. That's one of the reasons ICAR keeps. We made all of our directors sign non-disclosure agreements from day one. We wanted to make sure everybody's information, because other organizations unfortunately have let people's information, I'll say, slip out. So it was one of the things we do, but I do from time to time. I still, every couple of 4 or 5 years, I dump a bunch of information into the field, or a bunch of research, because we're everywhere these days. I mean, we've got 60. What is? Hold on, where's Claire? How many we got? 69,000 abduction cases on file. That's not how many cases we've done. That's how many cases we consider that probably are legit. We've done way more cases than that, but you learn a lot of interesting things, and you see a lot of stuff about sightings, and it's always bothered me. And I know we got to go here soon, but something, a parting thought, something y'all can work on for me. Actually, one of the things that's always bothered me about this is like the Nimitz sightings, or the Mexico City sightings, or the Phoenix sightings. So here's this. We'll use Phoenix first. Phoenix lights. This thing is huge. Lynn Cantai and I have talked about this on a dozen occasions or more. This craft is huge, just hovering over Phoenix. So how many people actually made reports? 13, 14,000. This is a city of 3 million? You got to kind of wonder what's going on. Mexico City, 24 hours this thing hovered over the city. More 1.1 million reports in a city of 24 million. What are the 20? And wait, it's not just that. The mayor made a report. The police chief made a report. A couple of firemen, quite a few pastors. There was lots of videos. Matter of fact, there's a movie stole one of the videos of the thing flying into the side of it and falling out to the sky. The bird flying into that was hilarious. But even so, all of that. You have all these, and then of course you've got the Belgium sightings. These are flying over cities. These triangles are flying over.
Yeah.
So my point is, I'm not sure that everybody can see a UFO. And it really irks my friends in the field, but the evidence suggests, and the real evidence suggests, that maybe only people who have been contacted can actually see them. Because there's something about it, these like the New York City one. I mean, this thing picks up, an ambassador sees, and a couple of Secret Service guys sees it, the lady who's taken sees a people. Yeah. It's a city of 8 million. This thing's huge. It's hovering over the city.
It doesn't. I agree. It doesn't add up, and it's as if they can tune people off.
It is. It is. Yeah. And maybe while y'all out there research, because it is something we do try to track. But I mean, maybe I'll stumble across something. I mean, I know y'all going to be doing a lot of stuff, looking at a lot of things as time is going on, and it is one of those things that just drives me crazy, because I'm like,
it doesn't make sense, does it?
It doesn't.
It makes sense. And not everybody reports everything.
Yeah, but when you got that many people, that's a lot of people.
But not everything gets reported, even who's taking down the reports. You know what I mean? Not everybody wants to be part of something like that, so you can't really look at it like that. And not everybody is
24 million. Yeah, when it's 24 million versus 1 million, that's a big difference. That's
1 million people is still a lot of people.
It's still. I'm not saying it's not, but it's a percentage. And that's the point I was making. When you do all of these sightings, all these mass sightings, you will find out it's a particular percentage of people that sees it, usually around 15%, which is, by the way, the same correlation that almost all abduction researchers agree on of the segment of population that's being taken. Awful big coincidence, man. I'm just saying. Yeah, I know, but I know we got to get. So again, Gary, tell me where they can find you. Man, you were great tonight. I know you got to be tired. It's like 5 in the morning over there. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, everybody tell Gary thank you guys, because I mean he debuted it here. We had a good audience in the world with me and listeners tonight. And this poor man it was 3 a.m. when he came on. It's 5 now. He's probably going, Jesus, Joe, shut the guy and go to bed. Go ahead, Jerry.
I say nothing.
But be sure.
I'm just grateful that you gave me the opportunity to speak about ICER. So I'm thankful.
I'm going to feature this. We do these big deals with Google these days for featuring shows on air, online, and stuff. And then we got.
If you believe in what we're trying to do, then try to promote.
I'm going to promote you. Matter of fact, I'll probably go get that video you were talking about.
You should. You watch it and send me a message of how it comes across, but don't forget it's translated. Go to the settings. It's in 14 languages, which is the 14 languages that are shown line by line. But you'll have never seen it before done in ufology, and it could have a real big effect if it was to reach a big audience.
The fact that if you can even, and this has always been a big thing of mine, and something I've bitched about for the whole time I've been in the field, if you can even get a third or even half of the field to unite, I'll be your personal best friend. Because I'm telling you, they are such a pain in the butt about this sometimes.
Let me just tell you a quick thing before we go.
Yeah.
I've been hosting meetings with our international representatives and deputies 3-4 times a week as we've been prepping to launch. Not once in any one of those international, South American, Europeans, etc., have we ever had one bit of argument, which is unheard of.
I know. It is. Ufologists have big egos to start off with.
Absolutely. So that we're trying to get rid of the big egos.
Yeah, they need to park them things for a while, but I try to stay out of all of that as much as I can these days. Used to get me in trouble when I first got into radio.
I can see why.
But in the radio, I'd be like, wait, what? I remember one of really, I'm not going to mention her name, really, really famous ufologist woman. She's telling me something. I looked up at her. I said, you cannot really tell me you believe that, right? And she's like, no, really, Joe. I'm like, I shouldn't even say this out loud. I said, but you just went from me here on my list to like, I don't even know I'm going to invite you.
I know what you're talking about, to be honest. I think I know.
It was too much for me. I was like, And every now and then I get one like that. I mean, just, they sound really good. And then all of a sudden they start talking. You're like, oh shit, what did I just do? And we have a big audience these days. And I mean, somebody asked me the other day, said, well, I don't know, how did you get such a big audience? I've been doing radio for 24 years. What the hell you think? I said, I've been in ufology for almost 40, man. I said, yeah, I got a pretty big following these days. I'm like, and it's good for me because, like I said, I don't have to make the conference runs anymore. I used to spend a lot of money attending conferences or speaking at conferences. And these days, if I want to talk to somebody, just call them. If I don't want to talk to them, fine. And I'm glad to see you getting into this because I've gotten tired of, I'm going to say this real nice. One of the reasons I quit going to conferences is because it's almost always the same stuff when I go. And it's almost always the same speakers. Even if I'm one of them, it's almost still the same stuff. And it's always kind of moving along the same lines of either disclosure or contact, but nothing really ever comes out of it. And I like being involved in something that, one of the reasons we started all these studies for ICER is so we could get new stuff that would change things. So, and it's weird because abduction research is actually progressing and changing and ufology stagnated. So seeing you do this may be the kick in the, what they need to get them going again. Because really,
here's one thing on the contact side. Several of our representatives have had the contact experience.
Well, don't need somebody to talk to. Give me a holler. Because I'm always tracking this down. But I know we got to go because Kathy Belsky's up with Quantum Leap Guys and Girls, so she'll be joining us pretty soon. Gary, a couple of months, we'll get back in touch and do some updates, get everybody back up to speed. Maybe
you can help us, believe in us, promote us.
Oh, I'm gonna put it up there. Oh yeah, I'm gonna put it up there. And I'll make sure I get some material from some other stuff, and we'll get it up there and get it out.
Watch that video. Really, that could go viral. I'm telling you, that could go viral.
And we got Dell up there. We'll get Dell out the cage and paint him up and put some signs on him and let him go.
Put him in. Did you say put him in the cage?
Oh no! You see, we got. Oh, you don't know about this? I got to tell you now. So we got this thing now. We've got like 7 or 8 Canadian hosts on the network now. So it started out. So the Canadian women are rough, man. They lock them in cages and shit, keep them locked down, throw them a little food in there, maybe a can of beer every once in a while. So we started Free to Canadian Men site. Please donate to Free to Canadian Men because the women up there are just mean. And it translates over to a good friend of mine who's Writers of the Future, John Goodwin's wife, is in Canada. So I said, John, you okay? She said, no, ever since you said about the cage, she locks me in a damn cage in damn L.A. now, John. I'm like, shit. So that's become a thing, man. But anyway, we got to get out of here for some of these crazy things where I've lost our minds. Gary, again, thanks for coming in tonight. I know
you're welcome. You're welcome.
It's a good thing. And I'll get back with you in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk about getting another date. And I'll get this other stuff posted up. I'm going to try to see if I can add the little video clip to maybe the end of this show. Or maybe I'll drop it in the middle somewhere as like a little
I think you should show it because I think people will be impressed by it.
Well, yeah, it'd be nice for people to see.
International.
The fact that you took the effort is enough, man. I mean, most people wouldn't even take the effort to do that. They would be like,
well, you think about that. That's 14 people recording in their own country to send the video in to Robert Fleischer in Germany, who put it all together, and then 14 translations. So there's a lot of work gone into it, but you watch it and you tell me what you think of that video, honestly.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to definitely check it out. But we we got to go, guys and girls. I want to thank everyone for tuning in United Public Radio, and of course, Science and Beyond, myself and the panel that was on with us tonight. I see Dark Horse Paranormal popped in. He's got a great show. Y'all should go check him out. Him and I have had some good discussions over the days, and I'll be able to check him. Be sure to go over and check out Gary. He's easy to find, guys. If for some reason you can't remember the name of the organization or anything else, you can remember Gary's name. He is on Facebook, and all of his stuff is connected. And if you can't
remember
even
ICER, it's a dead easy thing to remember.
ICER, that's right. So, and if for some reason you can't remember anything, you know where I'm at. Just write to me, and I'll give you his information. So, there's no excuse not to get involved. And people, don't waste people's time. I know I say this a lot on shows, and I've been saying this, and people get mad. You shouldn't say that, Joe. But you know what? Everybody who gets into this stuff is busy. We all have lives and other stuff going on and other careers, plus this stuff. So, you want to contact people and get involved, yeah, but make it legit. Don't just, get a hair up your ass and say, well, I could do this. No. Come on, people. You know what I mean when I say make it legit. Come on, I shouldn't have to explain that. But on that note, we're going to go again. Gary, thank you. Mike, thank you. Del, thank you. Tell Orly I said thank you. We are out of here.
Yep.
Stay tuned for Kathy Belsky coming to you live from Hawaii.
Bye.